So Claude Code, it's become a huge deal for AI developers, right? But a lot of us hit a wall. You have this incredibly powerful tool, but it just feels, I don't know, inconsistent, kind of frustrating. Well, today, we're going to break down how the pros actually use it and turn it from a headache into a coding partner you can really rely on.
Okay, let's just get right into it. Does this sound familiar? You've got this AI that's supposed to be able to summon a pizza with a thought or cook up a billion-dollar startup idea. But when you ask it to do something simple, like refactor a component, you get code that's buggy, incomplete, or just weird. Yeah, you are not alone.
This quote just nails that feeling, doesn't it? It is the core problem we're going to solve in this explainer. We're going to figure out how to shake that magic 8-ball and actually get the answer you want every single time.
Let's start with the basics. Look, the pros don't just crack open the tool and start typing away. No, they optimize their environment first for speed and for efficiency. We're going to cover 3 super simple, actionable steps you can do right now to set yourself up just like they do. Here's what the pros know. It's the small tweaks that lead to massive wins. These aren't some kind of complex secret hacks. They're just simple workflow improvements that have a huge payoff. You don't like creating a quick alias for a common command or installing documentation locally so Claude isn't wasting time with web searches and already knows what it can do.
And that third step, the YOLO flag, oh man, this is a game changer. It basically gets rid of all those "are you sure" pop-ups every time Claude wants to write a file or run a tool. This makes your whole workflow so much faster, so much more fluid. But you know, the name YOLO is there for a reason. You really should only use this in a controlled environment, like a virtual machine, where you're okay letting the AI work without you looking over its shoulder every second.
Okay, so our setup is dialed in. Now we get to the absolute most important concept for leveling up your Claude skills. I'm talking about the context window. Honestly, mastering this is the biggest difference between an amateur and a pro.
So check this out. You can actually tell Claude how hard to think. Each level uses a different amount of what we call tokens. Just think of tokens as the words or pieces of code the AI is juggling in its memory right now. A simple think uses about 4,000, while ultra think can burn through over 32,000. The temptation, of course, is to just crank it up to ultra think all the time, right? Go big or go home. Well, that's actually a huge trap, because cranking it to ultra think on every single prompt leads to this problem the experts call context rot. You're basically throwing so much information into the AI's short-term memory that it starts getting confused, it gets distracted, and it loses sight of what you actually wanted it to do in the first place.
And get this, the data is pretty shocking. Research shows that once that context window gets about half full, the model's performance can literally fall off a cliff. So more context does not mean better results. In fact, a lot of the time it means you get worse, less relevant code.
Expert Ray Fernando puts it this way, and honestly, if you remember one thing, it should be this. The absolute key to getting high-quality output from Claude is to be disciplined, to be ruthless in protecting what you let into its context window.
So, protecting the context window is the goal. We get that, but how do you give Claude the information it needs without totally cluttering its memory? Well, the answer is in the advanced toolkit: hooks, slash commands, and subagents.
First up, we've got hooks. The easiest way to think about these is as silent assistants. They're automated scripts that Claude doesn't even know exist. They just run in the background, triggered by certain actions, and they get information ready or do tasks without polluting that precious context window.
And then on the flip side, you've got slash commands. These are the complete opposite. They are explicit instructions you give directly to Claude inside the conversation. The AI is totally aware of them, and they become a part of its working memory for whatever you're doing right then.
So how do you choose? Which one do you use? It's all about strategy. You use hooks for those persistent background tasks that give Claude context without it even having to think about them. And you use slash commands when you need to give a direct, in-the-moment order.
A perfect example of a hook in action is the project index. This is a real pro-level technique. You have a hook that automatically maintains a tiny, minified summary of your entire project. It's like a table of contents for your code. So when Claude needs to refactor something, it can just glance at this index to understand the whole project structure without having to read every single file. This drastically, and I mean drastically, reduces errors. All right, you've got the setup, you've got the advanced tools, but the last piece of the puzzle isn't a tool at all. It's about how you think. It's a mindset. And this is the leap that really separates the amateurs from the pros.
Now, this might sound a little intense, but it is the absolute foundation of a reliable workflow. Expert Eric Buse puts it bluntly: you cannot blindly trust the AI.
You have to build a system of verification, and you can even tell Claude straight up, hey, do not tell me something is done if it's not actually done.
And here's the thing. By its nature, the model is an eager beaver. It can be, quote, over-anxious about checkmarking the boxes, which means it'll mark a task as complete even if it only partially worked or it failed silently. For new users, this is a massive source of bugs.
So how do the pros solve this? With a process called blind validation. It's a 4-step dance. First, you define a testing plan. Then, you let your main agent build the feature. And here's the crucial part. You then spin up a completely separate, blind subagent whose only job is to run those tests and validate that the work was actually completed correctly. This creates a closed loop so you get a reliable report on what's really done.
So, let's bring it all home. Our journey from frustration to pro really boils down to this. Start by optimizing your setup for speed. Protect that context window like it's your most valuable asset. Use hooks and subagents to give Claude context without the clutter. And finally, adopt that professional mindset. Trust, but always, always verify.
And that leaves us with one final thought. It helps to think of your AI as a brilliant, incredibly fast, but sometimes naive intern. Every prompt you write, every system you build around it, every time you correct it, you are teaching it how to be a better partner for you. So the question is, what habits are you teaching yours?